CheongSupport. Take it away, buddy.
Oh my God. I think you were basically defending yourself from some libelous claims that you're a pedophile, that you support ethical child porn, right? Am I right in saying that?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of memeing going on, and some people took it to the next level, and you had to defend yourself because people take it way too seriously. And having been on the receiving end of what you were on that day, like I've been there as well recently, right? I gotta say, man, like I fully apologize for partaking in that. That was a shit show. You didn't deserve that. You're obviously not a pedophile. You're not an ethical child porn supporter. You have these discussions. I would say that the discussions that you have on your channel are important, right? It's important to talk about free speech. And the instant you start, I don't mean you, but like in general, and people start saying that, oh, you're not allowed to say this because it makes you sound like you're defending a position that, that shouldn't be defended. I think that's disingenuous. People just want to shut you down when they make these claims. So yeah, man, like, it was my bad.
Can you real quick tell us what the hell ethical child porn is? And it's
I'm
too, by the way,
myself.
I totally agree with you. We, as a channel here, we talk about a lot of shit, right? It doesn't mean we actually advocate for any of these positions.
Yeah, let's
clearly.
Fucking sure, why not? Yeah, fucking let's do it. Sure, why not? Because everybody gets memed the fucking. So there's a guy called Amos E. Are you familiar with this guy?
Yes.
I am not, and I don't think I want to be at this point, but go ahead.
Amos E. is the guy that advocates for the total removal of the age of consent, and he thinks that adults should be able to have non-damaging sexual relationships with children. So like you shouldn't be able to fuck them till their bodies explode, but you should be able to fuck around with them sexually. Yeah. If you're 30 years old, you should be able to have a sexual relationship with a 1-year-old or 2-year-old person.
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
No, fuck it. No, we're down here. So fuck it, okay? This is welcome to my fucking life, okay? So I am of the opinion that informed consent is a cornerstone of what society is built on, that people need to be able to knowingly consent to things in order for society to function. So this will extend to things like a 13-year-old shouldn't be allowed to sign a contract that is financially binding, and a 2-year-old probably shouldn't be allowed to have a sexual relationship with a 30-year-old. I think these are pretty obvious things. Now, Amos E. was making his rounds through the skeptic community, and what I found when I watched these debates was that nobody had any fucking idea why we shouldn't be fucking kids. Most people were just saying things like, well, that's gross. Well, who the fuck cares? We do a lot of things that are gross. That's not a good reason to not fuck kids. Nobody knew the arguments for why informed consent was actually important. So I was like, okay, Amos, come on to my fucking show and let's have a good old conversation about this. And we had a long conversation about it. Philosophically, I think I established that his position was insane. So for instance, I got him to agree that if 100 people walked into a room and 90 of them were made millionaires and 10 of them had their arms removed, that would be ethical, even if nobody knew what was going to happen going in. I think I got him to agree to a lot of crazy things. I felt comfortable. But in the course of this 2.5 hour argument, where I was arguing in the affirmative for age of consent, Amos posed a question to me where he said, do you think there's ever a case where child pornography can be used ethically? And a fan of mine had emailed me a ton of research like 2 weeks earlier saying that in some clinical trials or in some places, what was theorized was that because if you look at countries where certain types of porn is made available and sex crimes fall, that it's possible to take child pornography that's already been produced and as part of therapy get a pedophile to not rape children. That was the argument. And I said, if you could actually demonstrate this in an ethical way, and I don't even know if this would pass like an ethics review, but if you could demonstrate in some way that previously produced child porn could be used to make it so that pedophiles aren't raping kids, as somebody that's generally in favor of kids not getting raped, this is something that I would probably be okay with, assuming that it passes all of the obvious fucking checks. So for instance, we're not making new child porn. We're not just bringing up like fucking random shit. Like there's a whole bunch of shit you'd have to go through to make this work. And that was my position on it. And that gets spun out. So now everywhere I go, I get spun out. It's like, oh, Destiny just wants to like rape kids and give all the porn to fucking pedophiles, which is obviously fucking stupid. But that's where that whole fucking meme comes from.
No, I can actually see your argument with that, believe it or not.
Sure.
We
and again,
people in the medical profession do things all the time. I'm not saying I'm agreeing with you.
No, I don't think
myself included.
I don't think new child porn should be made. I don't even know if this idea would work. If it doesn't reduce the number of pedophiles raping kids, it's obviously fucking horrible. I wouldn't want to traumatize old people by calling them and saying, hey, remember when you got raped as a kid? Can we use that video to show you a bunch of kitty jerkers to fucking jerk off to? I don't think it should be right. There's a million different hoops you'd have to jump through. And realistically, I don't know if something like this would ever pass any sort of reasonable ethics review. But that was like, I was just spitballing. Like one.
It's a hypothetical, right? It's like if. Yeah. It's like if this actually works, then why the fuck not? I mean, I can't disagree with that either. So
what about this? What about this? This would take a lot of that off the table. CGI.
Mm-hmm.
If they made CGI child porn for those people, that it may theoretically help. Again, their efficacy concerns here are immense, and plus you would have to see a whole bunch of data to support this.
We could talk about Lolicon, right, which is essentially animated child porn, right? So for me,
I'm not into anime, so I don't know even know this subgroup.
Sure. So here will be my super edgy take. I am very fucking uncomfortable limiting any form of art, and I feel very strongly about that. I also don't see that there is a damage caused by lolicon. I don't like those people in my community. I sure as fuck don't host discussions or those types of people. Like, that shit is all banned from any fucking platform that I'm a part of. But I mean, as long as those guys aren't raping actual fucking kids, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck if you jerk off to some fucking drawn anime shit, as long as you're not fucking with real children and it's not causing people to want to fuck real children. So, yeah.
That would be my question, is if something like that, using either old child porn or the CGI child porn, if that would kind of fuel their need to continue to pursue that, you know, instead, would it quail it, or would it drive people to want, you know, something more? Because when you do drugs,
you need the data for that.
You're constantly chasing that dragon, you know.
Yeah. So the research that was emailed to me, and this is a collection of studies, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that study it, but it seems like generally in countries where pornographic material was made unavailable, so illegal or treated as contraband, that in these countries, when those bans were reversed and people were consuming more pornographic content, the amount of sex crimes, including sex crimes against children, seemed to drop. That's what the empirical data said. Now, there could be other effect modifiers or confounding factors that explain that make it not necessarily related to the pornography, or maybe the releasing that pornography was a cause in itself, or maybe there could be, but that's just the empirical stuff that I was shown. I don't actually know what the established psychological position is on that right now, for if does viewing pornographic material make you less likely to commit a sex crime, or does viewing lolicon make you less likely to sexually assault children. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, well, I was just going to have a little addendum on that again, when we start talking about a lot of this stuff, that just because somebody talks about this stuff, and I didn't watch your guys' discussion on this. I've seen other guys. You had one discussion, and all it was a bunch of yelling. So I don't know what the hell the actual argument was. But just because somebody talks about these things on their channel doesn't necessarily mean a person is advocating for this particular position, because I don't know one way or another if Destiny advocates for what is called ethical child porn or not. I don't think it really matters what he does or not. He's still completely able to talk about the topic as a subject and not take a position either way. And again, without knowing more about it, without knowing the efficacy studies, without knowing if it has efficacy to the fact, will it change these people's predilection to having, you know, affinities toward children? Who knows? I have no freaking idea how any of that would work. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I really do have to agree that when you argue to somebody that, oh, you're talking about this, therefore you're advocating this position, that doesn't necessarily follow. And we have that happen quite frequently on this channel, obviously.
Oh. Let me let's switch gears then and see if we can't continue to find a place where we disagree. Let's go into to cultural appropriation. Like, for example, Jennifer Lawrence was just in the news for her clothing line, and then you had, like, for Halloween, you had those costumes, like for The Handmaid's Tale, that were they were recalled because it was objectifying women, and you know, and that's a fake. That's a fantasy. That's a fantasy series. So, what are your views on that? Do you think we take it too far? Do you think it's just right? Do you think the companies should have to recall stuff like that, and celebrities like Jennifer Lawrence should have to come out and apologize for creating a clothing line that's cultured and that she's not a part of, a culture that she's not a part of? Do you think that's the way it should be?
The issue of cultural appropriation, right? So I'll go first, right? So the issue of cultural appropriation is people getting offended on behalf of other people. That's like the baseline for it, right? They're saying, a white girl, a 17-year-old white girl shouldn't be allowed to wear a Cheong, right, which is a Chinese traditional dress, because she's white. She's not Chinese, and my culture is not your fucking prom dress. Right? That was the infamous tweet that made the rounds to get I think 1 million retweets or some nonsense. It turns out, like, Chinese people are okay with it. I'm in Malaysia here, and I'm okay with it. Everyone around here, it was actually in the news here, and we're like, why the hell are these crazy Americans getting offended because someone wore a traditional dress? And it's not even like traditional in the sense that it was around 1,000 years ago. It was traditional in the sense that it was made like in the 1920s. It was a fusion of Italian design, Italian women's clothing, and traditional Chinese clothing made to emphasize the form, the physique of a woman, right? That was the whole point of it, because women back in the day, Chinese culture was very conservative, and they were becoming more progressive, so they were showing off more skin. That's where that dress comes from. And for this guy to say that my culture is not your fucking prom dress, I mean, who the hell is this guy? Who made him the spokesperson for Chinese people? And when you go to places like Yale or Harvard and they get mad about Halloween costumes, they're suddenly declaring themselves to be like the moral arbiters of what is allowed and what isn't. Like, this costume is problematic. You can't wear this. You can't dress this way because it might offend somebody. I mean, who are they offending, actually? No one that I know is speaking up about this Chinese prom dress. It's just this one guy, and everyone acts like it's this big deal that somehow she's a racist because she wore this dress. And it just gets taken to this absurd, obscene level where no discussion is allowed. Like, no one's even allowed to ask, why is this okay? And they're like, well, if you have to ask that question, you're a racist. That's usually the response. Is cultural appropriation? I mean, what is cultural appropriation? Is eating sushi made from a chef who's not Japanese? Maybe he's a Korean chef. Maybe he's a white chef, right? Is that cultural appropriation? I mean, where do we draw the line? I mean, you had Lena Dunham say that eating sushi cooked at cafeterias, that was a racist thing. That was cultural appropriation, and we need to stop doing it. That's Lena Dunham. And obviously most people disagree with her because that's stupid. So where do we draw the line? I mean, do we have to stop eating fried chicken, soul food, because it's cultural appropriating the southern black people? I mean, where do we draw the line here?
Good question. Where do we draw the line, Destiny?
So, let's see. Parts of this I agree with, parts of this I don't agree with. I don't think there's anything wrong. I hear the meme a lot on people getting offended on behalf of other people. I think it's totally fine to get offended on behalf of other people. If somebody comes out and they start saying some super crazy dumbass shit that doesn't necessarily apply to me, I'll get offended for it, sure, if it's something that is contrary to my value system. So for instance, if somebody were to come out and say, I think the best thing that we can do for the United States would be to just disintegrate all the poor people because we would increase the standards of living for a lot of people and we wouldn't have to worry about it. I mean, I'll get offended for that. I'm not a poor person, but I'll get offended on behalf of those people because it's contrary to my personal value system. That being said, my background for college was in music. The entire concept of cultural appropriation in terms of stealing things from other cultures and using it as part of your own is hilariously fucking stupid. There is no original culture. Everything is derivative of everything else. Our culture has been constantly evolving and stealing and borrowing and giving and doing things from other cultures for the past 10,000 years. The idea that this is something that should be prevented is just fucking stupid. There are times where people call things cultural appropriation where I can get on board with it, but it's usually, I wouldn't call it, I would just call it being racist. So like, for instance, like, should you have, oh God, fuck, is it a baseball team called the Redskins? Like
the Redskins, yeah. Washington Redskins.
Yeah. Like, football.
Yeah, that's 100% racist.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. So like the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah. Right. Okay. Are these things that are probably, racist? Sure. But like, is this cultural appropriation? I don't think this is cultural appropriation. Like a guy walking around with like a sombrero, being like, "Hey, oh yeah, hi," or whatever, doing like some dumbass Mexican stereotype. Like, but I don't think that's cultural appropriation. I think that's just like fucking. That's just people being fucking racist. I don't think there is a special qualification for that. But like, if some white girl wants to host like a fucking yoga class or something for people at a college, there's not a fucking problem with that. Or if somebody sees some cool dress or some cool music that is Chinese or Japanese and they want to get a fucking tattoo of it or some shit, or a white guy wants to wear fucking dreadlocks, or black people want to eat mayonnaise, like fucking whatever people want to fucking do, stealing from other cultures, who the fuck cares? Like, that's what we do at the end of the day anyway. Like, I don't see why people get so bent up. But to be clear too, though, I don't see that many big people really get bent out of shape about the cultural appropriation. It always just seems to be like random people on Twitter that start to like cause a fuss about it.
Let me go a little bit deeper here then. Let's say someone, a white person, wanted to, for Halloween, dress up as Bob Marley and wanted to wear blackface. Is that a line that shouldn't be crossed, or is that okay to do?
I mean, he would look like an asshole for doing that, but I don't think he would be racist. Let's say maybe he's a fan of Bob Marley. Is he a racist? I mean, here's the thing: like, you can dress up as say a black guy can dress up as Elvis Presley, right? You have Elvis Presley impersonators who are not white people, right? And they do that. Are they being racist? Probably not. They're not. So why is it suddenly racist when a white guy, so a random white guy doesn't have any power, maybe he's broke, he's poor as hell, he likes to smoke weed, he dresses up as Bob Marley? Why is that racist? Like, you don't even have to do the whole blackface thing. I think most people realize that doing the blackface thing is a bit disrespectful.